about that. One of the things that we fail to realize in the Catholic Church is built a natural tension. This is church teaching. There is the whole teaching of magisterium, which is the bishops, and the whole role of magisterium is to conserve the tradition. All these wonderful things that we have as Catholic. But there's also the role of theologian. And the whole role of theologian is to take a huge microscope and to hold it upon what has been revealed and to help us to see it clearer, deeper, so that it could be most helpful. That is why today we celebrate this wonderful feast of Peter and Paul, two very different people. And what do we know about them? Peter, from Galilee, professional fisherman, very abrupt, speaks from the heart, says clearly and bluntly what he means and what he feels, even if he puts his foot in the mouth. Do you know anybody like that? Are you sitting next to anybody like that? You probably are, because I can see a few of you out there. But then we have St. Paul, from a region around Turkey, from the Jewish diaspora, well educated in many languages, studied under some of the greatest rabbis, versed in rhetoric. This guy is prepared. The whole role of Peter, when the apostles are walking on a day trip to Caesarea Philippi, way in the northern portion of Israel, these disciples have been walking with Jesus. So he says to them, so you've been walking with me, you've been observing me. Who do people say that I am? They're distracted. Well, you know, a prophet of some sort, blah, 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 blah. But then he asks them a very important, he says, you. We have been spending a lot of time together. Who do you say that I am? Has your spouse ever asked you that question? Has a good friend ever asked you that question? If so, I bet both you and I are very curious about how they will respond. Because hopefully people who are close to us pay attention to what we say and what we do. The disciples are perplexed, but Peter says without hesitating, you are the Christ. He gets the answer right. So right that Jesus is actually amazed. And he says, flesh and blood has not told you this. You have been listening to something deeper. And because you know this, I am entrusting you to protect this. What was Peter just saying last week when Jesus said, you must eat my flesh and blood? And it says they all left him. Then it says, Peter says, well, where are we going to go? Even though I have no idea what you're saying and that it makes no sense, you have the words of everlasting life. And so we're going to stay. We all need people in our life that know what's important to us and know what's important. They are protectors of the tradition. And that's the whole role of Peter. He protects the tradition. And friends, in our lives, we need our traditions protected. Husbands and wives, even when you get married, you don't become the same person, do you? No! That would be boring. You bring the diversity of your two personalities together and you form something beautiful. But you also promise in your wedding vows, I don't think you've read this in the fine print, to protect the tradition of the other person. What makes you you? You promise to protect that when your spouse forgets that. That's what we also do as good friends. Good friends are people that know us well. And when we forget who we are, they help to protect the tradition of who we are and invite us to practice that. We need foundation. We need tradition. But then we have St. Paul. Very, very different. Learned, articulate, and unafraid. Paul's whole role is about mission. Yes, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God, but what are we supposed to do with that? Faith is a beautiful thing to profess and learn. But discipleship is all about following Christ. And St. Paul's wonderful tradition to the church is that he teaches us how to take this beautiful profession of faith, you are the Christ, into our lives. What does it mean to take Christ into our lives? What does it mean to be involved in mission? That's what Paul does. That's what our friends do sometimes. Have you ever had a friend that pushes you to do something that you said you would never do? I hate this type of food. And they trick you. And you have a wonderful experience. And then you have to admit the truth. I actually don't mind this type of food. I hate these type of people. But then you go out and you have a marvelous time. I hate this type of church community. I don't hold hands during the Our Father. And something happens to you, and you just don't know what happens. You get inspired, and you're holding hands during the Our Father, for God's sake. I don't like when there's too many silent gaps at Mass. All of a sudden, in that silence, when your spouse or your girlfriend just says, shut up, don't talk to me right now, I'm praying, you actually have an experience. We need people in our lives that provide foundation. But we also need people in our lives that help us to step out and to go into the world. And that is the gift of Peter and Paul. Friends, church and spirituality is not about settling in to what we're comfortable with. It's about listening to the Spirit. After all, isn't that what love's about? Love isn't always safe. It involves that we leave our borders sometimes. But love also involves the fact that every once in a while we have to come home and remember what love is. Sit and contemplate what love is in order to be able to go out again. The gift of these two individuals today is that the church needs both foundation and mission. One is not better than the other. So the homework today is this. What am I comfortable in, and what do I need work in? And to ask through the intercession of these holy men to have a little foundation, if that's what's needed, or a little bit of mission. Amen.